When Nick Saban finished his last season as a player at Kent State in 1972, he believed that he was through with football forever. And what did he aspire to do with his life? Run a car dealership. Imagine a young Nick Saban with a mullet and a white blazer, salmon-colored polo, and beige wingtips standing on the lot claiming he's about to cut you one hell of a deal at Saban's truck, SUV, and sedans. But that ain't how it went. What had happened was Don James convinced Saban to stay on as a grad assistant for the Golden Flashes, and that decision sparked the greatest college football coaching career in the 151-year history of the sport. Over the course of nearly 50 years as a coach, Saban has developed his own philosophy for not just competing, but also dominating the game, called the process. Inside the process, he developed a system for analytically grading recruits. He taught his staff to evaluate dozens of characteristics among the players they were recruiting. He measured everything from toughness to hip flexibility to academic achievement, and he was meticulous. As Monty Burke wrote in his book, Saban, The Making of a Coach, Saban truly had a system. Different colored dots were put next to names. Green meant the kid had character issues, and red meant potential academic problems. Eventually, all of those bits of information were processed into an overall grade from 1 to 5, with 1 being the best. To date, the best grade an incoming recruit ever received is 1.8, and that was Julio Jones. The Tao of Saban is driven by a central ethos. No one is perfect, and the process of winning is more important than actually winning. In his book, How Good Do You Want to Be? A Champion's Tips on How to Lead and Succeed, Saban said, quote, "Believe it or not, some people are not wired to accept success. They don't really enjoy it. They're more content going back to work than reveling in success. I guess I'm one of those people," end quote. Only one of those people might be able to put together one of the greatest recruiting classes of all time. And he owns a stake in a car dealership. 4 of them, actually. After his 7th national title, including 6 in Tuscaloosa, let us assess Saban's 2020 Alabama Crimson Tide squad, which featured Pat Surtain, among others, who we'll talk with a little bit later, and might be as close to perfection as the never-satisfied coach has come. The 2004 USC squad holds the claim to the greatest team of the BCS era. With Coach Pete Carroll, quarterback Matt Leinart, and running back Reggie Bush, the Trojans began the season as the preseason #1 team in the country. Over the next 5 months, they ran the table 11-0 en route to a 55-19 skull dragging of my #2 ranked Oklahoma Sooners in the Orange Bowl. They beat an Oklahoma team that featured Jason White, Adrian Peterson, and a Hall of Fame coach in Bob Stoops, who led a staff that boasted Brent Venables, Bo Pelini, Kevin Sumlin, and Kevin Wilson, among others. Before giving up 55 to USC, Oklahoma hadn't given up more than 35 all season. Had the Sooners put up 55 on USC and held the Trojans to 19, they'd be the best team of that era. That's how important those teams are. Venables was the defensive coordinator for one of the best teams of the modern era because 2018 Clemson is still the best team of the CFP era. Not only did the Tigers run the table 15-0, one of 2 teams, including 2019 LSU, to accomplish that feat in the AP poll era, but also the original Death Valley Tigers did so without giving up more than 35 points in a single game. In fact, in Clemson's last 3 games of the season, the ACC title game, Cotton Bowl playoff semifinal, and national title game, the Tigers gave up a combined 29 points and handed Saban the worst loss of his career at Alabama with a 44-16 rout in Santa Clara, California to win the national championship. That Clemson team gave up 13.1 points per game in an era in which scoring has exploded. That's also the reason 2019 LSU and 2020 Alabama aren't the best teams of the era. The Tigers gave up 21.9 points per game. The Tide gave up 19.4, even as both averaged better than 48 points per game. Defense wins championships, and Clemson's 2018 defensive scoring feat might never be repeated. And that loss is one of the only blemishes on an otherwise otherworldly 2017 Alabama recruiting class. There's certainly an argument for that class being the best of all time, too. Alabama's 2017 class already counts 4 first-round NFL draft selections. Tua Tagovailoa, Jedrick Wills, Henry Ruggs, and Jerry Jeudy were each selected among the first 15 picks in 2020. If Devontae Smith, Mac Jones, or Najee Harris go in the first round, and at least one of them will, that will make 5 first-rounders from one class, with a chance for as many as 9, depending on how the NFL evaluates defenders Christopher Allen, LaBryan Ray, and Dylan Moses. Is it likely that 9 players from one class go in the first round? No, but the possibility is there, and that's the point. The 2017 class put together a 51-4 record. It boasts 4 top 5 Heisman finalists, including 3 in 2020, 9 All-Americans, 3 college football playoff appearances, and 2 national titles. It's only really that team, the only one to run the SEC 11-0, and it finished 13-0, wrapping up a perfect season with a 52-24 shellacking that wasn't as close as the score indicates over number 3 and previously undefeated Ohio State. The 2020 Alabama team became the first team to have a quarterback, running back, and wide receiver selected to the Associated Press All-America First Team since the team began featuring 2 wide receivers and 2 running backs in 1980, according to Fox Sports Research. All 3 players were in the 2017 class: Jones, Smith, and Harris. The only other class to consider in the modern era is yet another group of Saban Super Saiyans who probably performed their summer conditioning on planet Vegeta. That's the 2008 class. The nucleus of the 2008 class consisted of Julio Jones, Mark Barron, Courtney Upshaw, Mark Ingram, Marcel Darius, Terrence Cody, and Dante Hightower. That class won 3 national titles in 4 years and counted 5 first-round picks. It put together an overall record of 60-7. Those tied players became the first class to win 3 national titles in a 4-year span since Nebraska performed the feat in 94, 95, and 97. And it bears noting that 95 Huskers team is one of the 5 best all time. So is this 2020 Alabama team? Indeed, the 5 best teams of all time are 1945 Army, 95 Nebraska, 18 Clemson, and 19 LSU, and this most recent Alabama team. That's 3 teams in the past 3 years that have been absolute juggernauts for their season of dominance in the sport, and they've done it all with scholarship limits. The 2008 class counted 32 members, and the 2017 class counted 29 enrollees. The NFL's ultimate college football evaluation begins tomorrow with the NFL draft. There's still some sorting to do, but this class is the greatest I've ever seen, including the 08 Alabama class. What's clear, though, is that Tuscaloosa is home to the greatest recruiting class of the BCS era, 08, and the CFP era, 2017, though the argument changes a bit when we're considering the single best team. And with multiple first-rounders all but assured in 2021, it's interesting to try to identify the best players Saban ever coached at Alabama. There are really just 3 choices here for some, but they're all wrong. Until Saban arrived in Tuscaloosa in 2007, an Alabama player had not won the Heisman. Now the Tide have seen 3 winners in 12 years: Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry, and Devontae Smith. I believe neither Ingram nor Henry was the greatest player in the country the year they won the Heisman, because I watched Ndamukong Suh dominate opponents as a defensive tackle at Nebraska in 2009. And I watched Christian McCaffrey rush for 2,019 yards on 337 carries. It's 2 fewer than Adrian Peterson in 2004 when he rushed for 1925. And that was all at Stanford in 2015 for McCaffrey. While Smith won every major positional award a wide receiver could win in 2020, with over 100 catches and 1,800 yards, he did that and became the first player in Alabama history to do it because Jalen Waddle had a broken ankle and hadn't played for 79 days. The best skilled player Saban ever produced is Amari Cooper. Cooper led Alabama in receiving with 59 catches for 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns as a true freshman on a national title team. He led the team in receiving yards again in 2013, and he did it one more time as a junior when he became the offense. In 2014, Cooper caught 124 passes for 1,727 yards. The next best receiver to Alabama, DeAndrew White, who had 40 catches for 504 yards. Cooper did all of that with Blake Sims, A.J. McCarron, and Jake Coker as his quarterbacks. Among them, only McCarron started a game in the NFL, and he has only 3 starts in 7 years in the league. Cooper finished third in the 2014 Heisman voting behind Marcus Mariota and Melvin Gordon. Trayvon Boykin, J.T. Barrett, and Jameis Winston rounded out 4th, 5th, and 6th place among vote getters. It's no question who turned out to be the best pro among those 6. With that kind of talent at his disposal, it's become an open question as to which team will stop the coach who has won 6 national titles in 11 years. Alabama was the laughingstock of college football when I was a kid, and I'm only 33. Had the CFB been around then, folks would have talked about Miami, Florida State, and Oklahoma the way they do today about Clemson, Alabama, and Ohio State. Then Saban showed up in the SEC for a second time and taught the Tide how to ride this wave, get this drip, win championships. Although there have been contenders, most of college football has been trying to keep from drowning in Alabama's wake ever since. Oklahoma will be back, so will Clemson, Georgia, and Ohio State. Those are my bets to win a national title in the next 3 years. Until then, bear this in mind. Oklahoma, my team, has won 7 national titles since 1895. Saban took 2 years to figure out that he isn't a pro football coach, and he still won 7 in 18 years. The GOAT argument is over, and that title was won by the aspiring car salesman.